taking big risks, taking big bets, and developing technology that ends up scaling up to large systems, and therefore, hopefully, at the end, also creates wealth. This is really what the Silicon Valley game is all about. And I hate to use that word, but I think it's the right word to use, because if we really look at business from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's an iterative game where you try stuff, you get better, you make mistakes, you pivot, you keep progressing. And I think I just moved to Silicon Valley, actually, and this is why we've been off for a while. This is the first episode now out of our new headquarters in Los Altos in California, where we are situated now. And here's the thing. So just coming here and thinking about it, and sort of trying to analyze what really is going on in this place, um, makes you think, okay, there's a couple of things that matter, and that really matter. The big picture. This is not about, such and such company makes X out a living, maybe gets sold to another company, or any of that stuff. This is not about that. This is about the really big waves, the big wealth creation that happens here in Silicon Valley that we hope to tap in at Orange Capital Partners. This episode is about that. It's specifically about our largest position, Tesla, and the way we think that we're going to tap into wealth creation, because we believe that we are at the cusp of a massive wave of innovation and scalable technology that humanity hasn't seen before, and that is, in particular, artificial intelligence to solve the self-driving problem. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's August 25th, 2022. This is Krim Delco. Since the last update, we're roughly flat. The market is up about 1%. For the year, we are down 26.4%. The market is down 11.7%. We're underperforming by 14.7%. So let's start with some of the events that happened recently. The last 2 days saw presentations by Tesla at a chip conference. And why is Tesla at a chip conference? Well, because Tesla's developing large chips to do training. They call them dojos. These are not just chips, these are systems that are specifically developed to train. And I want to use this as an example of the broader theme of this particular episode. And the theme of this episode is really that you create wealth by taking massive bets, really the big bets, the big innovations that drive wealth. And what I mean with that is, we talk a lot about innovation, we talk a lot about technological development and all that stuff, but what really matters is somebody has to take the risk and set some process in motion that hopefully scales to a massive system. For example, when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, there was no demand for online shopping, and there was no demand for AWS. So he had to put that in place. He had to actually build the infrastructure, and then people came. I think the best analogy actually is the Golden Gate Bridge. Before the Golden Gate Bridge, there was no demand to cross the Golden Gate Bay from Marin to San Francisco and vice versa, because you couldn't. And whatever there was, the ferries and whatnot, that was not very good. And then when the Golden Gate Bridge was built, there was all of a sudden this wave of traffic and all these other ancillary businesses and developments and innovations that came with it. Tourism developed in Sausalito. There is a guy who rents bikes on Crissy Field that people can use to go across the Golden Gate Bridge to Sausalito. Without the Golden Gate Bridge, this particular business would have never existed. And in that realm, I think this is the same idea that we have when we talk about, let's say, Tesla. In particular, when we talk about the innovation that Tesla is driving when it comes to artificial intelligence. We believe that this is the next big box that we're checking here. in terms of wealth creation. Not that the car business and dominating the car market is not important. It's very important. It's generating cash and profitability for Tesla, which are incredibly important. But what's even more important is that we have to see the next few legs of growth that are even beyond the scope of what we have today. And this is where the really big wealth creation is. Just as a side note, I had a conversation just recently with a acquaintance, and they spoke to me about some investments they made with what is it called, the Mariana companies, the kind of stuff that is legal now in the US. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I'm not saying you can't make money. You can make money with these types of things the same way you can make money with booze. And then he was actually using that analogy. He said, we came out of the prohibition and then the booze business grew, and I want to participate in that, and good for you. But I told him, without really going too much into detail, I just said, look, what you need to find here is the Seagram, the Diageo, or the Coca-Cola of hashish, or whatever it's called. I forgot the name. The marijuana, right? Whatever, those CBD and whatnot, what they're selling in those dispensaries. You got to find that company that can create value in such a way. And my point then, I didn't say that, but what I was thinking to myself is, do you really want to waste your time with these things? Why don't you invest? You have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in the most profitable and most growth a company with the most growth potential probably in the history, at least in this generation. And I would say every generation gets a shot, at least in my lifetime. You know, there was a generation that got a shot with Microsoft, a generation of investors, by the way. There was a generation that got a shot with Google and Yahoo and Salesforce and Oracle and so on and so forth. Lots of generations of wealth creators, lots of interesting things. Our time now is with Tesla, and it's the most exciting ever. And that's usually how it works. The people who made money with Microsoft, they probably would have preferred to be maybe standing in line for Google. And the people who made money with Google would have liked to be standing in line with Amazon. And the Amazon guys, they would have been, or they can, if they want, still be involved with Tesla. Why is Tesla so important? Because Tesla has this mindset, which was created probably by Elon Musk, not just by Elon Musk. I can see it in Rubalino, I can see it in Zach Kirkhorn, but Musk definitely is a driving force, where you set these things in place, and it's usually hardware. It's usually things that are concrete, physical things, such as systems to train AIs, cars, batteries, rockets, and so on and so forth. Just as a side note, I think the way Tesla works, and the reason they're doing this and why this is so important, is Tesla sets a problem and then solves the problem. And usually the way they solve the problem is they solve it themselves. And this is the key. So you have a problem. Let's say you want to train video data, and you want to do it at scale. You want to do it at such a scale that you can, at some point, hopefully approximate the solution that a mu-zero approach would have delivered, meaning a self-supervised learning mechanism. They haven't chosen that approach, but they're choosing a similar approach. And what really matters here is not who's right or wrong. In a sense, should they use more of a mu-zero approach, or should they be more doing this task-driven approach? Should they focus more on computer vision versus intelligence in terms of decision making? All those things, we can discuss them as a side note. The point here is that they have a big picture problem, and they're solving the problem by going back to maybe not first principles per se, but definitely really, really down the stack and building up the stack. And I've seen that, for example, just another side note, when I read the biography of Henry Ford, which is an interesting book to read, to say the least. And there was a scene in that book, I never forget, where Ford sends one of his janitors who works in the factory in Detroit to Pittsburgh to tell the steel companies how to make steel sturdier and cheaper. And I forgot the details. It doesn't matter. The point here is that, of course, Henry Ford was not in the steel business, but he was fostering a new way of making steel so that the cars can be cheaper and more efficient and all and so on and so forth. So he's going down the stack. Similar episode with McDonald's, going down to the farmer level and saying, this is how you got to raise cattle. Unfortunately, actually, that's a bad example in terms of moral philosophy, because what maybe McDonald's was one of the driving factors of factory farming, which was necessary for that kind of meat at scale delivery that McDonald's became. But the point here is that you have to go down the stack and you have to build things and you have to take the risk. And this is the key of this particular episode. You have to have the guts to really take big bets on things that don't exist yet. Okay, training for video, computer vision learning at the scale of Dojo, that's not a problem that we have right now in business. It is a problem that can only be a problem if you anticipate full self-driving cars. If you anticipate full self-driving cars, then it's a problem. But we don't have full self-driving cars. In fact, we don't even accept full self-driving cars as a reality. Even today, a lot of people talk about Tesla just having a good driver's assistance system. And interestingly enough, today's an episode of Side Notes, doesn't matter. I just moved to Los Altos, so I'm full of new impressions. And one of the new impressions I got today, I met Jerry Yang. I was in a brewery here having some beer and drinks with my wife. And who's there? Jerry Yang hanging out. I didn't talk to him. I don't know him actually. I think I met him, or at least my former girlfriend met him doing business with him. Anyway, I forgot if I met him or not. It was almost 30 years ago, so you have to forgive me. But that's not the point. The point here is more. So who's Jerry Yang, founder of Yahoo? And Yahoo is the first search engine, probably the first internet company that really made it. Maybe not the most important internet company, because I would still think that Netscape gets that crown, but certainly the first one that made it. And the first, maybe Jerry Yang for a short time was the Elon Musk of his time. But the point here is, why didn't they make it? Well, they didn't make it because Google came along. And what did Google do? In a nutshell, Yahoo was trying to solve the problem of internet classification and search by actually even using humans or human-assisted technology to classify the internet, versus Google did it all algorithmically. And in the beginning, again, this was not a problem that existed in the early days of the internet. What kind of algorithm should we develop to classify the internet? That wasn't even a real problem. And Yahoo solved the problem by doing what's kind of, let's say, an arm's length problem, which is, okay, we have these bunch of websites in 1992 or 3. How about we classify them? And we hire people that actually, they say, you are a travel website and you are whatever, a home improvement website. And people can apply to be listed on the Yahoo index, and we make money doing that and all that stuff. Then Google came along and said, we're going to do this algorithmically. So we're going to choose the best possible results for our search based on an algorithm, and then we're going to sell advertising, which again will be algorithmically determined who pays how much. So the whole thing became an AI, and through continuous usage became better and better and better. The same applied to maps today, and so on and so forth. So what Google did was maybe not the first best thing to do in that moment, but in the long run, it was unbelievably more successful than what Yahoo did. And the same way we see Tesla now. Tesla investing in Dojo is certainly not something that most car companies understand. They don't even understand what that even means. Forget about doing it or even trying to compete in that sort of business. But what Tesla is really doing here is solving a computer science problem, because the computer science problem is, how do we train video data at scale? This is streamed data that needs to be sort of trained in a, let's say, and I'm just touching the surface here, in some sort of behavioral cloning way. That means that you have the car driving, and then you monitor the car, and then you learn from how the car drives, and then you apply that to the real world. And that requires a certain system, and the system in particular today is limited by memory. What does that mean? The system is limited by memory in a sense that those algorithms require a lot of back and forth between the CPU and the memory. And this is one of the key problems that needs to be solved in almost any kind of graph / matrix / AI machine learning type application. What that means is that you have these massive calculations that can be done in parallel, but you have this constant back and forth between the calculator, which is, let's say, a GPU or a CPU, and the memory. So, and that is one of the problems that Dojo is solving. I think this is a very interesting problem. It's a cutting edge problem in computer science, a cutting edge problem also in electrical engineering, because we're talking about how to make, let's say, heterogeneous systems on wafer, having different components put together on one chip, how to cool them, how to interconnect them, how to make the traffic less power intensive, and also, of course, less faulty, how to cut corners, how to, maybe we don't have to go back and forth all the time. Maybe we can just go between memory and the CPU, GPU a few times and still get good results. Maybe we don't need to have all the logic in the CPU GPU cluster. Maybe it can also be in memory, so we can have or near memory logic, and those kinds of things are what Tesla is working on. Those are cutting edge computer science problems. Those are problems that I would say definitely scientists think about, that grad students think about, and now Tesla is thinking about it. And this gives me a lot of comfort that there is a potential here. And as an investor, we're talking potentiality all the time, that maybe they can solve a problem that can become much, much, much more important in the future, because we don't even know all the applications that are feasible today based on this new technology. And this is the key. We don't even know the kinds of software that can be written based on these types of systems. We don't know what the results that, or the kinds of solutions that Dojo will offer will create new problems, hopefully better problems in a Popperian context, that then will foster a whole new generation of technology. So this is the kind of thing that Tesla is doing, that Elon Musk is doing, and this is what gives us a lot of comfort. To summarize, the purpose of this particular episode was to give people a sense for how we feel moving to Silicon Valley and what the actual game is that is played here in Silicon Valley when it comes to wealth creation. It is it is all that there is technology, there is science, there is innovation, there is capital, there is risk taking. It's all of the above. But there's one thing which is unique here, and that is the willingness of certain entrepreneurs / groups, VCs, whoever it is who backs these types of projects, excuse me, to go big, to risk building large systems that are scalable and modular without even having an immediate problem to solve. So this is exactly the opposite of what you learn, or what I've learned in the 1990s type business culture of listen to your customer and all that stuff. No, don't listen to your customer. Listen to your gut. Listen, scratch your own itch, and then build a system that can help you solve problems. And build it in a way that the problems that you solve, hopefully they're big enough already, but then you will create new problems that are hopefully even better and bigger and have even more potential. So build it in a way so you can modularize and scale it up. And this is exactly what Tesla is doing with Dojo. I'm using Dojo as an example. I could use other examples. I could use the 4680 battery development, which is a whole other story and a whole other podcast about how to scale and modularize a particular technology for the future, and for the future necessities and problems that are being anticipated today. And that has a nice side effect for us investors, and that is it's immensely profitable and it has immense potential to create a lot of wealth. Thank you.